one tide can change everything. One spate can change everything. And that's the point of view I go out with. I go out with, and I look at the whole package. It's, people say you go out and you're just going out to practice casting as much as anything else or whatever. That fly could swing around the pool, and you could have a day that's a memorable day for you forever. So that I always go out totally with a smile on my face, and just be actually of the mindset that I'm so thankful that I'm involved in what I'm involved in.
Hello and welcome to the Ireland on the Fly podcast about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland. The 2024 salmon season is well underway, and having spoken to anglers around the country, it appears that numbers are still down and following a similar path to 2023. But, if you've been despondent and down in the dumps like I have, well, this week's guest, Sean McLaughlin, who is a salmon angler outside Derry, is here to put some positivity and hope back into your season.
I have to say, just to give you a bit of warning, there's a lot of positivity coming out from our next guest. It's kind of great as well, leading into next week's masterclass as well.
Yes, exactly. It was like an AA meeting, really. Like, you know what I mean? It was, it was brilliant. It was a lot of
really good.
It's heartening to hear, So for people, Sean McLaughlin, he's an angler. He fishes the fall in the morning, the fin, and But the passion Sean has for salmon angling, he's not deterred, despite my best attempts to drag him down to my level.
You're dragging him down.
The science, the numbers, the decline.
He pulled you back up out of the water, and you were back into the water.
So if you need a pick me up, if you need a fill up, if you need a reason to be positive and hopeful for salmon fishing, despite 2023, despite the science, despite the hard evidence, despite the facts, despite the truth, ignore all that.
Dara, step out of the game, please.
Sorry.
Back into it. Sean's wearing off,
Just as in the words of Sean, just go out and fish and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And that's it. Look, let's hear from Sean. And I first asked him about the 2024 season.
Very poor so far. I haven't had a fish yet. I've been out maybe 7 or 8 times. Early season for my fishing for me is in the upper fin, and it has produced fish. I was on it yesterday, done no good, and the water had more or less fallen away yesterday. The day before I was there, I put in a big day. I think I fished for 11 or 12 hours. Didn't get a pull, but there was fish caught that day. There was, as I know, maybe 15 or 16 fish caught that day. The water was good. It was a mixture. There was a couple of late springers, and the first of the grilse were starting to appear. And so that was a positive sign. I think the issue we're always going to face with salmon is when we're sitting here now and it's early to mid-June and the fish are just starting to come, we don't know how good it's going to be or how bad it's going to be. We'll not really know till the end of July, middle August. So we're always looking behind. It's always the rear view mirror analogy. And so I always look for the positives. The fish are starting to come, and I just don't. I'm based here. I live in Derry here in the northwest, and this is a salmon fishing hotbed. Like I've got the foil system and all the tributaries and stuff like that. And but I always look further afield. Like I would look and see how things are happening in the Moy, things are happening in Galway Weir, things are happening in the Blackwater. I always look for indicators, because generally what you find is, when the run starts, it generally appears in a lot of places at the same time. Maybe not in as big in numbers, but even in the last week, we've seen that the Moy started to produce a few fish. Galway Weir started to produce a few fish. We've seen more fish appear on the fin, more fish appearing in the Blackwater, and so on. So you're looking for them indicators just to see, right, is this the start of it? And you're always hoping, but you're always trying to think, is this going to be? And was last year just a blip? 2023 was really, really tough for all concerned. We got conditions a lot of time, but the fish just weren't there in the numbers that we would normally associate with even an average year.
I sometimes think I've taken up the wrong sport because I'm pretty much a glass half empty kind of guy. So being a salmon angler and then glass half empty, it's not a good combination. Whereas I think one needs the hopeful optimism, glass half full that you have, Sean, because you'll keep going out, going the next cast, this is the one, the next day, this is the one. Whereas I suppose the problem for me is that I look at 2023, Conor Arnold's words still ring in my ears, falling off a cliff, describe the season. and it's not like, and again, I've spoken to other anglers kind of going, oh, I was hoping 2023 was just going to be one off, but like, I've done it through the Last Salmon podcast. The more you delve into, the more you look at the evidence, it's all pointing that way.
Yeah.
Okay, I totally understand, the arguments about cyclical and conditions and all that, but when the overall chart, is going down, it's for me, and I think this year, Sean, is maybe I need to fill up talking to you, listening, get a bit more positivity, but it hasn't picked up, I suppose, from 2023. It's kind of continued in the same vein. Would I be right or wrong?
As I say, I may just be eternally optimistic, but for me, for seeing all the ups and downs I've seen over the past almost 40 years, one tide can change everything. One spate can change everything. And, you're looking, and that's the point of view I go out with. I go out with, and I look at the whole package. It's, people say you go out and you're just going out to practice casting as much as anything else or whatever. But, that fly could swing around the pool, and, you could have a day that's a memorable day for you forever. So that I always go out totally with a smile on my face, and just be actually of the mindset that I'm so thankful that I'm involved in what I'm involved in. Because for me, there's so many people that don't get the experience what I get the experience, whether I catch a fish or not. I'm out in the countryside, and you see things and hear things, and and the friendships you make with people that if I didn't fish, there's so many people I would never know. And that for me is a huge part of it as well. The people we meet, the stories they tell, and the banter and the camaraderie you have with people. It's that's all part of the big setup on it.
It's part of the whole picture, Don, isn't it?
Absolutely, Tom. Absolutely.
The whole picture. And I have to say, I really admire your positivity.
I need some of it. I need some of it.
Well, yeah, you want to bottle it.
I'm sending it down the podcast here.
And get it down to Dara quick. But yeah, I think, but you see, it's having that positivity that will lead to a day to remember.
Yes. I don't get, this might sound crazy, Dara. I don't get discouraged. I go out every time I go to a river. Now, I'm lucky. My kids have grown up. I've got a very understanding wife. I can basically go and fish whenever I want. And I have 3 fantastic rivers on my doorstep. The Fallon's my home river, 10 minutes from my house. So optimal conditions, I'm going out. The hall in my house is just like a fishing tackle shop. So I have the setup sitting for whatever river I'm going to, and I just load them in the car, and boom, I'm gone. The furthest I have to go is 40 minutes to get the thing. So I'm really, really lucky. And again, that's part of it as well, is being thankful for what I have, and that ties in with my ethos of the whole fishing. I'm at a point now where I'm so much experience. I've learned so many things. So for me, the next step is speaking to people and sharing what experiences have I had, the rights and wrongs they do in salmon fishing. Like when I started out the early days fishing the Fallon, the older guys were very, very forthcoming to me with information and experience and stuff like that. So in a strange sort of funny way, I feel a social and a moral responsibility to pass on what I've learned. Not in a content way or in a teaching way or anything like that there, but just to be a good guy about what you know. And with me, I'm an open book. There's no secrets. I don't keep anything away from anybody else or anything like that there. There's no secret flies that I would never share with anybody else. I'm so open to share it because a lot of times you meet people and you have an experience, you have a conversation or whatever, and then they come back and say, "Geez, remember that day I met you in the phone? You told me to do this. I got a 4 to 5 pound grilse or something like that." And that's priceless. You can't put a value on that. And that's maybe it's just the way I'm programmed or whatever you want to call it. But I'll give you a slight bit of perspective on 2023. Now, I've been involved in the management of the Fallon for almost 30 years. I started out as a committee member first, and then I became a director in Fallon Anglers. So basically what we have here is an incredible resource. It's a community resource, and what it is, we control the entire river from source to sea, and we've got 700 permit holders on our river. And We keep strict catch records. Basically the way we work it is if you take a permit out to fish the Faughan, you must put a return on to be eligible to get a permit the following season. We instigated that in 2007 with the view of getting as accurate catch returns that we could possibly get. And that's we have went under 90% returns in that time. So we've gathered a lot of information. So just to give you a wee bit of perspective, and this I can only speak from a local perspective there. 2023, we had 640 salmon caught, right, on the Faughan. But in 2021, we had 586 caught. And in 2018, we had an even lesser number again.
Okay.
So these are years that came before 2023, and everybody's going, "Oh, it's a disaster, and it's everything else." Now, I know there has been a more sort of globalized drop in numbers in that sense, and that's totally understandable. And there's no getting away from that. But you're always looking for things that you're going, okay, where's the you're saying there, like, where's the positivity? A glass half full, glass half empty. I look at things in that. In the salmon's lifestyle from its evolution 10,000 years ago since the Ice Age, we're living currently in a tiny, tiny pocket of what's actually happened in the bigger picture. This, for all we know, this could have happened hundreds of years ago on a totally natural basis when the earth was much warmer and the water wasn't as cold. The water wasn't as cold and such like. So we don't really know. We have to. What we have to do, I think, is the scientists need to get to the bottom of it, because they only guys can change governmental policy and get real action done. Like you touched on a lot of this in the last salmon podcast, which again I will commend you and Jim massively on. I thought it was a fantastic, even for somebody that's been around this world for as long as I have. I learned so much from the guests that came involved. So massive kudos to you guys for doing that, and also for bringing the awareness to a much broader audience as well too.
Yeah, awareness is a big thing for anglers, and I think that was part of the reason that podcast as well, is because we're the custodians of the river, we're the ones,
Absolutely.
The best ones and if we can be enlightened and informed, all the more, all the better. Like you said, whether it's relatives, kids, whatever, in a supermarket, when farm salmon, that kind of, it starts with one. A couple of things that strikes me, Sean. Do you have the same positivity and ethos across is that your personality, like across your life? Is that what you're like?
Yes, absolutely.
Fair play.
To use the phrase in the Northwest, you can say it's all duck or no dinner. So that's basically who I am. Salmon fishing and fly fishing and tackle and everything else. It's part of who I am.
Yeah.
And that doesn't go away. Even the off season, my wife would say, "Oh, there's no off season with you. You're either writing stuff, or you're on the phone to people, or you're letting people try tackle and stuff like that." So to me, it's 365. It's all encompassing. I think is the best description. But I absolutely love it.
Now, can I just say, Dara, will you take a leaf from Sean's book, please?
I need to.
I think it's brilliant to hear you say that, Sean. It really is. It's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant.
So, Sean, tell me this. At what stage was it salmon that became your thing?
Salmon became my thing in the late 80s. My first year fishing the Faughan was 1988. But I didn't actually catch any salmon. I caught a few sea trout the first couple of seasons, and my first salmon wasn't actually caught in the Faughan, believe it or not. It was caught in the tidal section of the Finn, 3rd of June, 1990. I remember it well. And the runs of fish back then were absolutely phenomenal. They were incredible. But, for me, when I started out then, it was just something I was completely fascinated by. Now, at the start, I started out with I was the spinning man and worm fishing and stuff like that. So I got into fly fishing in 1993, and it just went on. No, first few years, but I did do all methods at that stage. And back then, there was fish taken for the pot because there was an abundance of fish and stuff like that. There was no tagging at that point. The tags hadn't come on at that point, and but then. For me, the sea change was, I remember getting a fish one time in early October, and it was a silver fish. It wasn't massively coloured, but it was a hen fish. And I remember taking the fish home and staking it as you did, they give to somebody to eat, and I seen the roe coming out of it. and that was the sea change for me. And I think that would have been maybe 1996, 1997, and that was me. I says, I made a thing myself. Then I wouldn't kill a fish after the end of July, and that was even back then. And that wasn't me and I wasn't looking to be, oh no, I'm going to be different from anybody else ever. It was just a personal choice where I thought, this species and this fish and this sport, if you want to call it, gives me so much joy. So for me, it was a way of giving something back, even back then. And inadvertently, it was probably ahead of the curve in many ways, but it wasn't intentional. It was just how things played out.
Ken Whelan actually said it to us. It was the phrase they called it the gift.
I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
That was a fantastic way of putting it.
Yeah.
I couldn't have put it better myself. That was so poignant and so on the money,
Yeah, it's a very emotive kind of term, but it's right. Like, it's give something back by at least putting the fish back and give it the gift, of return.
See, part of I wouldn't say I was into photography, but even years ago, I would always carry the camera. So I was quite happy just to photograph. A lot of the times the photograph is just a fish lying with a rod, in the water and you releasing it, that sort of thing. On occasionally, because a lot of times you're fishing on your own, salmon fishing, so you don't really get a photograph of yourself fishing. So if you were with somebody and then they hooked the fish, you would get a few shots, a few action shots and that sort of thing. So, I ended up having an extensive library of photographs, and even them, they were enough for me. And then GoPros came into the scene. So I started getting on them and started doing clips. So, for me, I get far more pleasure now from watching a fish from away than I ever did taking one home and for somebody to eat, in that sense. They're just too, and now for me, they're just too precious. They're just too precious.
Did it quickly become an obsession with you?
Oh, very much so. I would have read anything. When we were growing up, people had, people they looked up to would be footballers and stuff like that. My two heroes were Arthur Oglesby and Hugh Faulkner. They were my heroes. Do you know what I mean? So everything they written, I would have got trout and salmons, and I would have asked people that they have old trout and salmons that they didn't want, and I read them cover to cover. I didn't read anything about the trout fishing, to be honest. Now, it was just salmon. Anything I could get my hands on salmon. I went to my local library and I would have went down and got books and just read them cover to cover over and over and over again.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, what us trout anglers say is you sold your soul for salmon.
I would totally agree with you, Tom. I would totally agree with you. It got under my skin. It became part of my blood, and it just hasn't let go. And I would never want it to let go.
Can I just ask there? I think this is important, and obviously with all the the permit holders, you get the fun as well. But salmon fishing, for you growing up in Derry, was easily accessible, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We all cut our teeth, the kind of phrase. The river where I live in Derry, I live in the outskirts of Derry. So the River Foyle was 5 minutes from my house. So when we were growing up, everybody done two things during the summer: either played football or you went out to Foyle to fish. And you caught sea trout and fluke and eels and stuff like that. Occasionally somebody caught a grilse, and it was like, this was phenomenal because you're fishing a big tidal river. And but then there was always this. I heard whisperings. This would have been sort of 86, 87, about this mysterious river just out the road called the Faughan. And a friend of mine, Colin Quigley, he was a permit holder with his father and his brother and stuff like that. So Colin had been fishing it for a couple of years, and he said to me, "Come on, I'll take you out." So back then, you got out with push bike. So we cycled out. It was five miles from my house to the river, and we cycled out, and he showed me around and stuff like that. I put in an application for him, was accepted the following year, and I've been on it ever since.
Was the Faughan always like club waters? Was it ever privately held?
Always association waters. There's been organised angling on the Faughan for 90 years this year.
Oh.
So and the Faughan, we talked a wee bit about history and cycles and stuff like that. I can give you a wee quick story on the Faughan. When I started fishing the Faughan in the 80s, the Faughan was a sea trout river that had a run of salmon. Now, to put that into perspective, the glory places and the places where that had the huge runs with the Mourne and the Mourne tributaries and the Fun. The Faughan got the run of salmon, but it was massively overshadowed by the run of sea trout. Now, come the late 80s, the sea trout runs crashed, much in the same way they did in Connemara. We had no salmon farms up here. Our nearest salmon farm to here is in Loch Swilly, to the west of Loch Swilly, and to the east would have been over in Glenarm. But these would have been only starting out at that joint, but they're not directly in our area. And the North Atlantic Salmon Fund, we were Vigefson at the time, they closed down the high seas netting in the Faroe Islands and off Greenland and stuff like that. This has been in the early 90s. And crazily, even though the sea trout numbers had dropped, the salmon numbers had stayed really stable for that couple of years. But once the high seas netting had been curtailed massively, the run of salmon in the Fáin and all the foil rivers for that matter went through the roof. So within about 3 years, we went from a sea trout river that had a run of salmon to a river that had a run of sea trout. And it stayed that way for approximately 25 plus years since. Now we're seeing a small change here now. As I say, we're very, very tight on the catch return stuff out there. 2022 season, we had 1,164 sea trout caught on the Fáin that year, and that was the first year that the sea trout catch return had been higher than the salmon. Like our 5-year average for salmon would be 800 fish, or 800 salmon, and we have 75% release rate. Now we get tags up here, so you are allowed to keep fish. When we started out doing the returns, our catch and release rate was like 26%. So as the evolution of catch and releases could become more prevalent, more prominent among anglers, and people have become more conservation minded, the numbers have went up exponentially as regards how people do that. It's not that long ago we were getting 20 tags, 25 tags a season. It's now down to 3. But a lot of people have generally took it upon their own hands. Again, this is the power of one, where you can turn and say, well, I can do what I can do. I can only control what's in my environment. So my environment, if I go out and get a fish, generally what people do, they get a fresh run grilse at the start of the season. That's the one they take to the table, and they're happy enough with that. And the sea trout numbers is the same, massive. Like it's over 80% of the sea trout is released as well. And this is completely voluntary, but it's interesting to see how it evolved from such a low number voluntarily to the high numbers we currently see now.
You said you had 3 rivers early on. So you had 3 rivers close to you. You said the Finn, the Fáin, and what was the third one?
The Mourne.
The Mourne, right.
Yeah.
So how close is the Mourne to you?
20 minutes.
Right, okay. God, you have a long way to go for your fishing, don't you, man?
I'm completely spoiled. Tom, that's part of why I'm so thankful of it as well, too, because I'm going, geographically, I've had the jackpot as regards being a salmon angler from this part of the world, And again, that's part of my being thankful and having optimism and just being happy about what I'm doing when I'm out at the river as well, too,
Can I ask you as well, because this is something I've always kind of mentioned, Tom, isn't it? Is that the north, that you don't hear a huge amount of it in terms of for visiting anglers. No,
you don't. I think what it is, because it's primarily club water, by and large.
Yeah,
it's a lot of club water. Whereas in Connemara, you had the established sort of day tickets tied in with the hotels and stuff like that. The Cork Blackwater had it, the Moy had it, and it was all fragmented. Up here was a wee bit different, because I think it was the clubs, and then also if you were a visiting angler, do you want to be fishing with a lot of people around you as well too? Most people when they go to fish somewhere as regards a fishing holiday, they like a wee bit of exclusivity as regards, right, I'm the only person fishing this beat today, and I'm not sharing it with 10 or 15 maybe other rods at peak season, No,
also as well, I think, the accessibility is key there as well. You can get them if you want, as there are day tickets, but also for you, the locals. And I think that's important. That's why you're strong up there. And I see it as well. It's, if there was exclusivity on those waters when you were growing up, and let's say there were private waters and you couldn't get to fish them, it wouldn't have mattered to you about salmon fishing, because you wouldn't have been able to get salmon fishing.
That's true. That's true.
And that's why I think the accessibility is important. And it's easier for younger people to get into it. It's not as expensive. You can bring young people from your area onto the club waters and get them salmon fishing. I think that's really important. Personally, I've always think that I think that's very important because exclusivity means it's hard to get on. It's hard for the normal person to get fishing, even if it's in your locality. And I think in the long run, that's self-defeating.
Well, you see, I would totally agree with you, Tom, because we set up a program where, like, our fishing is not expensive by today's standards, even for an adult permit. And then what we actually did to encourage more kids involved, we introduced an under 10 permit, and we charged £10 a season. And the idea is to get more kids involved, and we're going to be looking on the tutorial days and teaching and stuff like that as well too. And like I previously held what we termed a River Faughn Anglers Education Day. We've done that a couple of years ago, where we invited people. We invited people to come along, and because we've got over 20 miles of fishable water, there's a lot of diversity. You can't just turn around and say to somebody, well, just you go there and fish in this tactical work. We've got a tidal section that you need to understand the tides. You have a long, extensive freshwater section that runs through various places, and access points, and when they fish, when not they fish. It's also important as regards water levels and stuff like that. So what we did, we done it on a small scale, and something we're going to revisit again, where we got 20 anglers to come along. We've done it as a wee bit of a casting clinic as well too, for people starting out, and we wanted to cut through a bit of the noise as regards, because in salmon fishing there's that much information that's available online now. But if you're new to the game, it can be overwhelming, the amount of data that's out there and the amount of information. You're going, well, what's relevant to where I'm fishing? So again, this is me feeling as if I want to pass on what I've learned and have a moral and social responsibility to people to try and say, look, here's a way of cutting through the noise. Here's what you should do, but here's what you shouldn't do as well too. We tackle tactics, tides, water levels, and so on, And the day was very, very successful, but it's something we're going to push on. We're looking to do it in the near future as well too.
I love the fact that the river is controlled and owned by the club waters, because I think it gives a real sense of local ownership, local community, even the policing of it, the owner. It's part of the community, and like you said, it's about the youths, and I love that. You mentioned there, and I don't know if there is an answer to this or it's been looked into. When you mentioned the sea trout disappearing from the Faughn, and yet there was no salmon, or there was no fish farms.
Yeah.
Has anybody come up with an answer why?
Nobody has. Now, there's been research done within the last year. We done a collaboration with Loch Agency, where we actually tagged sea trout smolts. There was various arrays, receivers within the Loch Foyle and along the north coast. They track their movements, and basically what they wanted to see was, right, when the sea trout smolts leave the Faughn, where do they go? Because there was always this, they go to Donegal and they go to the Isle of Doe and the Kildaff estuary and on. These are renowned sort of sea trout saltwater places for fishing in the salt. But nobody never knew for sure. The Ban estuary was always a place was mentioned as regards being, a potential feeding area. So I can give you a wee bit of insight on that. Loch Agency and ourselves, done the collaboration. They tagged 25 sea trout last spring. And now this year, it's been extended this year, but obviously this is an ongoing project at this time. And the crazy thing about it, 24 out of the 25 sea trout made it out past McGilligan. The McGilligan's the pinch point where Loch Foyle reaches the open sea. Okay. So the crazy thing about it, all 24 turned right. Not one. So they all stayed in Northern Ireland. They all stayed. None went left. None went down to Donegal. So what they
There's so much we could say there, but
I know.
I'm just going to leave that hanging.
They're staying local. Tom. They're staying local. And the funny thing about it was it sort of cleared up that missing link of where our sea trout go to feed, and the sea trout spent us up until the tags. Then they were tagged in sort of late April, early May, and they lasted for 3 months, and they were able to track their movements all over the north coast because they had arrays right over as far as Ballycastle, which we were past the entrance to the River Bush.
How far would that be, Sean?
Geographically, it's not a lot. You're chatting. Well, when they get out on the open sea, you're probably looking for somewhere a range of maybe 20, 25 miles.
Okay, yeah, not that far.
Something along those lines. I may not be exactly correct on the number, but somewhere in that region. And they stayed in the Ban Estuary. They moved about the Ban Estuary, Castle Rock, Coleraine, in that area. But then, unfortunately, the tags only give out the receiving ping for 3 months, and then they don't work then. So we've now set up a set, and this was done in concert and in collaboration with the roe anglers as well. The roes in the neighbouring river to us, and they done the same project. And the funny thing about theirs, a lot of this was defined right how much predation happens as well too. The good thing was the predation seemed to be very, very low, because we only lost one smolt, and the roe only lost one smolt. But interestingly, the rays went right the way across to the Isle of Mull. Because this wasn't just about sea trout tagging or salmon tagging. This was they tagged taupe, they tagged seals and various other marine species as well too. And they wanted to see what the movements were in this North Channel. And what they actually found was the 3 of the roe smolts went as far as Scotland and came back again.
Wow.
In that 3-month period. So we both ourselves and the roe anglers have set up the smolt program again this year with Loch Sainsey. So it'll be interesting to see, does the second year's data collaborate with the first year?
How does it compare?
Does it show up something completely different?
Like, were you very lucky that you'd only what was it, 4% predation? Was that just God? That was just happened to be a great year.
Exactly.
Exactly. Like any data, you can just take. You got to take a bigger window.
Yes, absolutely.
It's really interesting to see that. That is very interesting. Really interesting stuff. Now
it let us know exactly where our sea trout go to feed and stuff like that, and how long they tend to be in them areas. Interestingly, there was a trout tag, a smolt tag the year before, and it was caught by an angler night fishing the following season. This would have been caught last year. And it gained a pound and a quarter weight. It was a quarter pound approximately when it left the river as a smolt. And when the angler caught it, weighed 1.5 pounds. And it was caught like 200 yards from where the smolt was released, which was very, very interesting, So there was a tag on it, showing that it was marked. They showing that it had a tag and stuff like that. So there's so much we don't know, about both species. Yeah. But I'll give you a wee bit of insight, because we touched on sea trout here now. I'll give you a wee bit of insight on how prolific the farm was back in the 70s and 80s. 1983, the recorded catch return given in was, I think, 5,400 sea trout caught, right? But only 10% of anglers made returns that season.
Wow.
That'll give you an inkling, an insight into how prolific a sea trout river it actually was.
So 5,000 represents 10%. Is that what we're saying?
Well, back then, I think even the permits holders numbers was even higher then. I think it was approaching 900 to 1,000 anglers.
Wow.
But that was an exceptional year. That was an exceptional year, But back then in the 70s, in the 60s and the 70s, the sea trout used to start coming in small numbers, and larger fish came first in May, and the sea trout were still coming fresh in the Faughan in October.
I'd love to know what happened, like you said, because there was no fish farms. I'd love, because obviously I can understand Connemara and what happened there. Absolutely. I'd love to know what happened there.
The correlation is crazy. But I know the Connemara collapse happened basically around 87, 88.
Yeah.
And ours would have happened. There was maybe a year lapse on it, where it became obvious that the trout just weren't coming back in the historical numbers that we used to see. But what the crazy part was, the salmon numbers went exponentially through the roof after,
because of the netting was stopped. Yeah,
the netting because
I see nets.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We understood that a lot of our Faughon's primarily a grilse river, so the one sea winter fish were going, and they were feeding off the Faroe Islands. So once that was stopped, the numbers just were massively jumped,
Sean, just going to ask you there, you're a bit like myself. So you're surrounded by fishing. So I'm looking at myself. I'm surrounded by trout fishing here. I sold me soul for trout, as you know.
Yeah.
But I still like to travel and go to other parts of the country, trout fishing, leaving behind some of the good lakes here. What about you? Do you travel? would you go? And if you do, where
not so much in Ireland, Tom. Not so much in Ireland because I'm spoiled where I am.
Right.
You mentioned Conor Arnold. Connor's a good friend of mine. I've been down fish with Conor in the Blackwater a few years ago, and that's kind of as far as it went. I did travel a wee bit, and this is tied in with my obsession with the species, both salmon and sea trout. I spent the summer in Lochina Lodge in 1994. My early days been involved in the Fahan, involved working in the sea trout hatchery. We had a hatchery program here, and then basically what I looked to do, I tried to make a career of it. I didn't succeed, but I was on a work scheme with Fahan anglers, and that would have been 1993, and that was only for a year. When that came to the end, I went searching for summer jobs. And I actually wrote a letter to Peter O'Reilly asking could he recommend places that I could try for summer jobs. And the two places he recommended was Delphi Lodge with the guy, what's he called? Was Peter Mattle.
Peter Mattle, yeah.
So I wrote a letter to Peter Mattle and I wrote a letter to the late John O'Connor, who was the owner of Lodge.
Valley, yeah.
And he was the manager of Ballinhinch Castle at the time. And long story short, John replied first, and I took up a post with John. It was only for like 4 or 5 months, and I went down and ran the hatchery program down there, where they had a small number of, I think we had about 20,000 sea trout fried in there. We brought them on, they fed fry and stuff like that, and we actually had smolts that were imprinting in Derry Clare Lake, so I was involved with that as well too.
Yeah.
Once the fry were released out, I came back home then after that, but it was a great experience. So I've always tried to sort of find different channels and do new things and stuff like that, you know. But as regards fishing in Ireland, I haven't really went much further than that. But outside Ireland, I've been to Norway twice. I spent
which rivers?
Of the same river. I went to the Elva River in mid northern Norway. Elva was an interesting one because it was in private ownership for many, many years. It was a family owned it, and they basically kept the fishing to themselves. A fellow, William Moberg Falls, set up a fishing company called Magic Rivers Company, and he obtained a lease for the river. And there was a beautiful Norwegian farmhouse and stuff like that. So he set up a lodge facility there, and he went in collaboration with Loop Tackle and Loop Travel. And what they did then was he then wanted to bring guests to come and fish it. So in 2022, I went there in June for the spring season. Now, spring season, so you're going there. It was the third week of June, and it's still very cold there. The air temperature can be high, but the water can be really, really cold. And I went there with a party of 6 other anglers. The week itself was hosted by Alistair Peake of Loop Tackle, and so Al had fished it a number of times, and so he knew the river very, very well, knew how to tackle it, and knew all the tactics to use and stuff like that. So I actually went on a trip. I knew Al very, very well through my connection with him with Loop, but I didn't know any of the guests. So I was a guest with 7 other anglers who I had never met before, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. Wow. It was absolutely fantastic. And I met up. You get partnered up because there's always 2 rods and stuff like that. I got partnered up with a fellow, Scott Turner. I mean, I had a fantastic week. It was that good. We gave one of our nicknames. Top Gun had just come out, the second one, so he was Maverick and I was Goose. So we had a fantastic week, and the camaraderie, and you know, I looked at, again, going back to Oglesby stuff, and Arthur Oglesby had old videos where he would have fished the Vosso River back in the day. And so I always looked upon Norway as this unobtainable sort of destination for me for many, many years. And then when the opportunity came up to go, I grabbed it with both hands. And we had a fantastic week's fishing. We had 71 salmon for the 8 rods. And we had fish from 4 pounds up to 22 pounds, you know, which was fantastic. But when you go in the spring, it's generally the bottom 2 miles or river you're fishing, because there's a large set of falls there. And that acts as a temperature barrier. And the tide actually comes right up to the falls. So if the river temperature is not above, say, 9-10 degrees, the fish won't run the falls. So you're fishing what's called the home pull. And then you have a pull below, which is called 100%. And you're basically fishing them on beat rotation and stuff like that. And we had some phenomenal fishing, which was great. But I always felt then that the lodge itself at Horsted Yard, it was 16 mile of river. They had the river. A lot of it was double bank. There was some opposite bank where farmers had fishing, but it was primarily double bank and stuff like that. So I always wanted to go back and tackle it, go and fish the upper river, because it was just it was heaven on earth. If you ever get a chance to look it up, it's a stunning river. Like, it's absolutely stunning. So I wanted to go back and do the upper river. So going back then, last year in 2023 of all things, and this is where we chatted about the rear view mirror analogy. I was going to Norway knowing they had no water the whole summer. So I didn't go to the last week of August, right? So generally you're going the last week of August. Al would host the week in August as well too. So we went along, and some of the people that was there, none of the people that was there in the June week were there before. So it was a new set of friends, new people to fish with and stuff like that. And so that was a good experience as well too. And then we went out, and you were going, okay, bright sunshine, low water, but because you're going there, you still go and fish. First day I hooked three grilse and lost the 3 of them, and I go, oh God, I'm cursed here, So that was okay. I said, again, optimistic. You had the chances, you didn't take them, it didn't work out, but there you go again. So we went out the second night, and a lot of party had never fished for sea trout before. They'd done salmon fishing in Scotland and stuff like that there, but they never really went after sea trout. So myself and Al went out one of the famous sea trout pools called World's End. They describe it. You're fishing this ginormous pool, and there's a mountain essentially above you, covered in pine trees. It's about, I would say, it's about 700 or 800 feet tall. It could even be higher, but absolutely stunning place. So we tackled up, went down the fish. I was fishing 10 minutes, line stopped dead, sailed off, full fly line gone, 50 yards of backing, the whole lot. And I was going, this must be a really good salmon here I've hooked, and that sort of thing. So we got it under control, so we got it on the side. Al turned on the torch only when we were ready to beach it. It was a sea trout of 12 pounds.
Wow.
And here's the Irish connection to that. I caught it on a size 10 Connemara black. And I had a number of sea trout on that flight, and I actually caught sea trout in the Bibio as well too when I went there on that week, because we still fish during the day, because you're there, you're still going to fish no matter what. But then, sea trout, which Saul and I knew about fishing in the dark, and then see when I get that big sea trout and we get back to the lodge and everybody chatting about it, everybody started night fishing. And everybody in the party had sea trout in the dark, and some of them had never done it before, and they just thought this was a great experience. So it just shows again the positivity, and always looking they keep going. And it was hard. Like friends of mine were saying, you're going out there and it's going to be really, really tough. And I said, well, when you book it, you take your chances.
Yeah,
it's up to me. Yeah. It's up to me to make the best of what I find.
Yeah. Fish the conditions.
I don't get. This is the thing that you're probably seeing. I don't get deterred. I just keep going.
It's brilliant.
I keep going.
That has kind of come across all right, Sean.
That's a good thing, I suppose. That's a good thing. The main thing you need for salmon fishing is time. That's the first thing you need, right? Then you need the fish. Then you need the conditions. So it's a triple whammy in that sense. But the main thing is, if you've got the fish, eventually you will find the time, and eventually the conditions will come right. But whether you can be at the river at that time, the people that go and travel, it's a gamble. If you arrive at a river, I had guys who I fished with in Ielva, and they told me they were fishing a river, a small spate river in the north of Scotland, for a few years. They took the same week, but they went up 2 years in a row, and there was no water, and they didn't fish. But they booked it and paid for it, and they says, look, we're still going to. But they did say we're not doing it this year. If we ring the gillie and there's no water, we're not going. But they still had to be booked and paid for.
I remember my father telling me there was a lad who came to Headford for 7 years and never caught a trout. Right. Which is a pretty crap average. But when I delved into it further, apparently he let everybody else go fishing. He stayed in the pub for the whole week.
Oh, see, that makes sense. I
met a German tourist up in the Drows, and he's himself and his wife, and I don't think he didn't have much English, but the wife had a little bit, And she says, we have been coming for 19 years and we still have not caught a salmon. And he was like, it is not 19 years, it is 17.
You'll have 2 years.
You see, in a situation like that, you know, if you find that you're doing, for me, it's inquisitive within me. If that was me in that position there, I would be asking questions. I'm by nature inquisitive. I would be speaking to everybody I know, because if the guy's going and doing the same thing over and over again and not getting any success, then fundamentally there's something wrong with what he's doing.
The definition of madness.
Paying for a guide could save him years of experience, and just tapping into the guide's knowledge and him sharing with what he knows.
Dead right. Well, listen, Sean, I'm wondering, because it's been brilliant chatting to you. I'm just going to have to, just like you said, bottle some of that enthusiasm and take some of it down my way and see if it can help. I tell you, it's been brilliant because, you know, I was chatting to Tom earlier, and there's a danger kind of the negativity spiral around salmon fishing maybe this year, following on from 2023. You know, and I know from just reaching out to the people around the country, there's a lot of kind of, you know, down heads and people are despondent, and, you know, just, you know, I see more people heading out to the coast now, you know, into the saltwater in the summertime now. You know, there's that kind of, you know, people are kind of starting to maybe veer away, but it's brilliant to hear the enthusiasm, positivity and rationale behind it as well.
Don't get me wrong, I am a realist. I understand that there is issues. But I'm an eternal optimist, and the optimism will always carry me forward as regards how I look to conduct myself and how I look to be around others, and how I would look to carry on with what I'm doing. For me, salmon fishing is like doing a higher level education course that you're never going to graduate from. That's for me. That's what it is, because the information, if you fall down this rabbit hole that I have fallen down, then you just keep going and going and going and going.
There's a lesson there for salmon fishing, and a lot more besides, I think, for people that are listening. It's if you want a metaphor for life, I suppose there's an apt one, if ever there was one. Sean, last question then, and I'm wondering, have you told us it already? But what was your most memorable fish on the fly? Was it not the sea trout?
I have a different answer for you.
Okay.
Good. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to tell you a story, and it involves the fawn. Early July 2007, I got up early morning, went fishing. I don't usually get up early in the morning. I'm sort of 9 o'clock and fish. In some cases, just fish till dark. But this one occasion, I woke early. Fawn had a phenomenal run of fish that year. Phenomenal run of fish. Yeah, fish were just coming in every tide. And this was early July. Everything was spanking fresh. So there was a good number of anglers about the tidal section, and water was perfect. Went down to fish. I got on the pool called Kiln Stream, named after a local farmer. And the lie was just the middle tree. There's three trees along the far bank. And if you were going to get a pull, it's in the middle tree. So I just cast a fly over the middle tree, line came round, line sailed off. And someone said to me, this feels a really good fish, right? So I happened to look at my phone to see what time it was, and it was 7:10, right? So it was 7:10 in the morning. So I was playing away at this fish, and on 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, never seen it. The nearest I got there, it ran up under the neck of a wee stream, and I had two flies on. I was fishing the dropper, and I hooked the fish on a Curry's red shrimp and a McCormick's Folly on the dropper. And nearest I got the dropper up out of the water, which was leaving the fish maybe four feet from where I was. And the dropper was just flipping on the surface, and the fish went away down or whatever. So that was okay. Half an hour passed, 40 minutes passed, still hadn't seen it. And the Fawn's not renowned as a big fish river. It's a grilse river. It does occasionally produce a good fish. But to shorten the story a wee bit slightly, I played the fish, or should I say that it played me, for 4 hours and 10 minutes. And I never seen it once. And the fish came off, the fly popped out of it at 11:20. And I never seen it once.
Oh my God. What do you reckon?
And it was a fish. I can assure you it was a salmon. I can assure, because I've got all the jokes that, hey, you hooked a seal, you hooked a log, and I got all them stories. When I hooked it, there was one fella, Kevin Kelly, was standing next to me. When I lost it, there was probably 15 people standing around me when the fly popped out of it. And when the fly popped out of it, everybody just parted. Nobody spoke. And you would have heard a pin drop. And I just says, well, it wasn't meant to be. So that was the one that got away.
My God.
4 hours and 10 minutes.
And
the crazy thing about it, it's hooked in the tidal pool. And for 45 minutes, it did all your usual. It took big runs and digging and shaking and everything else. But then the tide came in and the flow just died. And it just sulked. It sulked, it stayed in the bottom, but it just moved about and didn't take any big runs, and we threw bits of muck and stuff like that. I didn't try and get it to move and stuff. It just did whatever it wanted. And because I'm fishing a grilse river, my cast was only a 12-pound cast, so I knew it was only something really substantial. And it was one of the last years the commercial nets were on the foil. And then about a week later, a friend of mine says he knew one of the commercial guys, and he got 2 fish in the nets that week, and one was 25 pound and one was 27. So it was a huge fish. There's no doubt about it. What size it was, I really don't know, and I wouldn't speculate. But that's the one that got away.
Wow.
And you'll never forget it.
I'll never forget it. And that's why it's so memorable. Dara asked me the most memorable fish he got on the fly. That is the most memorable.
Yeah, no, it is. Well, you did get it on the fly. You just didn't land it.
Exactly.
4 hours. Oh, my God.
4 hours and 10 minutes.
Your iron must have been...
For maybe a week, 10 days, it was just wrecked.
Is the part of you ever saying, though, I wish I'd seen him once?
Yeah.
100%, Tom. Believe you me, I had a few tough nights. After that, I had a few tough nights going to sleep. It was all the what ifs and, oh God, if you had only seen it once. 4 feet was as near as I got it. The McCormick's was flapping on the surface, and the Curry's Red was down below on the tail fly. And the fly just popped out like that.
Wow.
And I was all, God. And because you go to yourself, what could you have done different? Should have done it. After 4 hours and 10 minutes, it should have surrendered. It should have came with a white flag. But, these things happen the way they're meant to happen. Sometimes they're meant to be, and sometimes not. But I'll keep trying, and I'll always hope that next cast will connect me with something along the same lines.
Sean McLaughlin, thank you so much for joining us. It's been enlightening. You've given me some positivity and hope back. I was down, near the bottom, but now you've picked me up. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the salmon season. Sean McLaughlin, thanks again for joining us.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Dara. Thank you.
Sean, absolutely brilliant talking to you. And can I say now, the listeners can't see this, but you've actually put a smile back on Dara's face.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Job done. Thanks a million, boys. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Our thanks to Sean McLaughlin for joining us on the show. Don't forget to rate, review, and follow the Ireland on the Fly podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Plus, you can keep up to date on IrelandOnTheFly.com as well as on Instagram, and myself and Tom will be back with another episode about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland.